Hello, and welcome to the East Africa Business Podcast. This show is all about showcasing entrepreneurs who are building businesses in this exciting part of the world. From reading high-level articles about the region, it can be difficult to really understand what's going on, and so my hope is that these interviews somewhat bring it to life, as well as stoking your curiosity to go find out more. On that, do take a look in the archive for more episodes that we've done, but for now, let's enjoy the rest of this funky intro music and then get started with the show. In this catch-up episode, I chat with Caitlin, who runs Flare. Caitlin and I first spoke in late 2016, and you can listen to the original interview by scrolling down to the episode named Uber for Ambulances. The premise then was that Flare would become a technology platform to connect people with ambulances, much in the way that Uber has developed the model of hailing a driver through their app. Whilst the vision of providing world-class emergency dispatch services remains unchanged, the company has developed more of a human touch. As Caitlin and I discuss, a core offering they now have is a 24/7 dispatch hotline, where trained medical professionals consult with callers before dispatching them to the appropriate provider.
This is rescue. What's the location of the emergency?
We also talk about other things that have come from running the business over the past 3 years. How they've been cautious to not scale too quickly, how large corporates are signing up to the Rescue.co service, and their considerations for international expansion.
Today we sell to big, corporates or small corporates. A lot of our clients are schools, factories.
The interview takes place in the garden of the Flare House. You may notice a number of companies such as Link and Sun Culture also operate from residential homes, and so there may be some background noise, not least from Coco, the office dog who comes over about halfway through.
It's Coco. She's doing an internship.
Is she? Yeah. Is she going to get the job, do you think? What's your sense?
She's got a couple more months left, but we'll see. We'll see.
Anyway, I'm sure none of this will distract you, and so without any further ado, please enjoy this catch-up with Caitlin. Cool. So we're here today with Caitlin from Flare again. Caitlin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Cool. So we first chatted nearly 3 years ago, would you believe it? And we went for a bit of an overview of what Flare was doing and what you were sort of getting set up to do. But yeah, just for people who perhaps haven't listened, could you just give us a bit of an overview as to what Flare is and what you're doing at the moment?
Absolutely. So at Flare, we are building next generation emergency response systems. So what that actually means is that we're building 911 for the 60% of the world that currently does not have an existing system.
Very succinct. And that was pretty much, that vision has not changed.
That vision has not changed. Definitely the way that we've gone about it has changed, and how we operate. But as it relates to what we focused on, the vision has been the same since the beginning.
Fantastic. And it started off, sort of version one I seem to remember talking about was there's a real problem with ambulances, like calling an ambulance in Nairobi in particular, in that you've got, I think it was 43 private ambulance companies, and if you needed to call an ambulance, you'd need to go through, in theory, all 43, and it could be that there's one around the corner, but you don't give them a call. And you were basically looking to aggregate that all together, so that you can call, I think the dream was that you could call one number, and then the one that was closest would be dispatched to you. How did that go? in building that out, is that basically been being built out?
Yeah, so from 3 years ago to today, we've actually made that a reality and have today responded to thousands of calls and dispatched thousands of ambulances to patients in Nairobi and also across Kenya. Our fastest response time is 4 minutes, which was amazing, and it was the exact same scenario that I described, where someone calls us distressed and we knew that there was an ambulance around the corner based on our technology, and we're able to dispatch. The part that's changed is that we actually today operate the 24/7 dispatch center. So when someone has an emergency, they do call one single number. That single number routes to our dispatch center. It's picked up by a paramedic or nurse who triages the call, provides care over the phone, and uses our technology to dispatch. So I think the change is that we realize the value of a human in emergency response, and that There is absolutely and was opportunity to digitize a lot of it, but there still is that value of having a voice at the other end of the call to calm you in some of the worst moments of your life.
Got it. Because the initial way I understood it was that it was Uber for ambulances, and you'd kind of press a button and so-and-so is on his way. So you've sort of tweaked the product in such a way that there's now, when you say they call a number, do they call Flare?
Yeah, so our consumer product is called Rescue, and so they call Rescue. So we have a number that is...
Is it like a 07, like 077?
Yep, incredibly easy to remember.
What is it?
So you're provided it once you sign up as a member.
Okay, very good. All right, I'll sign up.
So you should sign up at rescue.co, and then you'll be given the number. But you make that single call. And what we realized, again, in the moment of emergency, you don't necessarily need to download an app or press a button, is you just want to call instantly that one number and hear someone at the other end of the line reassure you that you're going to be okay. That other individual at the other end of the line needs to be enabled by technology such that they can quickly make the right choice, and that's where our technology is built in, is that it's on the back end. And it allows our dispatchers to quickly find the right resource and get that ambulance moving towards you.
Got it, okay. So when somebody signs up to Rescue, they save the number in their phone?
Yep,
and they go from
it's
there.
as simple as that.
All right, very good. And then the dispatch team, so these are employed by Flare or employed by Rescue. So you've got like a team and 24/7?
Absolutely. So we have a team that works 24/7, 365, and is there to pick up your phone and phone call in seconds.
Okay.
And they're all medically trained, and so that they can provide directions over the phone. So if you're having a heart attack, they can give the caller the step-by-step directions in layman terms, such that you can actually provide that care over the phone while they're also dispatching the ambulance.
Really? So 4 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, you've got a trained paramedic at the end of the phone?
Absolutely.
Is that quite expensive? If I'm a trained paramedic, would I want to be at work at 4 a.m. on a Wednesday? Do you have to pay them quite a lot?
I mean, we make sure they're taken care of, but I think one of the things is medical professionals here are a little bit more affordable, but at the same time, like, we saw the actual value of having someone trained at the other end of the call. Also because the system here is so fragmented and chaotic, there are more medical decisions to make. In the US or the UK, it's pretty straightforward. You call 911, they dispatch an ambulance, and they know exactly what hospital you're going to because it's based on your location. Here, there's a lot more that needs to be decided. So they need to decide at 4 a.m. on that Wednesday, if you have a heart attack, where do you go? And you don't know that there's only one 24/7 facility that has a cardiologist. Our dispatchers do. And they can make those decisions using our technology, which helps guide them, to make the best decision. But otherwise, if you just have a non-clinical person, we believe that you wouldn't have as meaningful of a service.
Makes sense. So is there like a big sort of database of hospitals? It's like, click this button, click, 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 cool, here's your list of 3.
Exactly. So it's based on proximity and then what we say appropriate. So appropriate means, does the hospital actually have the service that you need or we suspect you need to provide you that care? So some of it's pretty straightforward. Like if you think about it's a woman who goes into emergency labor or has obstructed birth, does that facility have the ability to do emergency C-section? Or you've broken your ankle, does that facility have an x-ray machine so they can actually see whether or not you have a fracture? So it's some really basic stuff, but all of that is in our system such that our dispatchers are enabled by that technology.
Yeah. I can't remember if we spoke about this on the podcast or at another time, but you basically had to go out and build that database of categorizations of everything.
Yep.
That doesn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah, we had to build
a massive headache, if you ask me. I don't know, not a headache, but that's quite a job to go around to.
It was quite a job, but I would say now, because we have a lot of throughput, meaning we have a lot of calls, we're validating that information every single call. In the sense that if today Nairobi Hospital has a functioning CT scan, but tomorrow when we call them for a dispatch, they don't have a CT scan, that will be turned off in our system. So we're constantly revalidating that information. So once you built out the system, we were able to kind of quickly adapt and kind of adjust.
Okay.
But it is an unbelievably powerful set of data that no average individual will ever know or understand.
Are you utilizing it just for Flare? Or could you, I don't know, sell access to that database to another organization?
Maybe, if the price tag's big enough.
Yeah, all right. I was thinking like it's quite a lot of work that you've done.
It is.
And I'm just wondering if there are other ways, if you're sitting on it, like other companies that are like, oh, I'd really like to be able to tap into this. And
I'm sure.
yeah, maybe you could start like medical equipment leasing or something, where you could, if you notice that these particular, sorry, I'm going off topic.
Maybe.
I'm going
I
off
think
topic,
like for right now, our focus is
Yeah.
on just making sure that we provide an unbelievably life-saving service, and that we do that in seconds, and we make sure that not only do we save your life by getting you an ambulance, but that we also make sure that you get to the right hospital, and that hospital is ready to actually provide you that care.
And you're also doing fire engines.
So the kind of longer-term vision, meaning in long-term in startup land is like 6 months,
Yeah.
is that we build out our service capabilities such that we can provide, not only medical emergency support, but fire as well as security, police, so that you can call, just like in the UK where you call 999, they then, triage the call. Is this, police matter? Is this medical? Sometimes it's both, and so you need both resources. And so that's the kind of future that we're working towards, is bringing all of those services together.
Yeah. How have the government been, I don't know, say, and are they sort of aware of what you're doing? Have you had to like go through some regulations and things if you're doing this, or is it, as a private company, is it perfectly legitimate for you to offer these services, which could in other places be done by the state?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting question. I think a lot of countries actually, you think of it as a public service, but it's actually offered by a private provider. So I'll give you one European country, Denmark, and it's actually the largest provider is called Felk, and they're a private provider. So I think there is actually a lot of historical precedence across the globe.
That's a medical or fire?
Ambulance.
Ambulance, okay.
And so they do that. I think here we have engaged the government at a national level. So as probably most are aware, in January there's the terrorist attack. And so I think another big use of our system is that during a mass casualty or a natural disaster, this was not obviously a natural disaster, but if there were to be a landslide or something like that, the need for emergency services is heightened. Like, you not only need one ambulance, you might need dozens. And so from that level, we're starting to work with them to figure out how do we plug into that system, because we are the largest provider and network of ambulances, and so we're actually best able to provide that support. So at a national level, we're working on that. And then Kenya is divided into 47 counties. And every single county manages their own emergency response. So we're starting to work on a pilot basis with some governments to understand how we could best work with them.
They're basically saying, we're currently trying to do this on our own, but we could just use Flare, and they'd basically take that problem away from us.
And it would, help optimize their services, make them more accountable, give them the data that they need, and be able to provide a service back to their constituency.
Okay. So who are the main customers of Flare at the moment? So is it mainly just consumers, individuals that are paying for Flare?
Yeah, so the individuals pay for it through the rescue.co membership. So you can sign up at rescue.co.
Yep.
And it's 2,400 shillings per year per person. It gets cheaper as you add on additional family members, but that includes everything. If you ever have an emergency, you never pay for the ambulance. Okay. And so the brilliant part about that is that...
We never pay for that, because you were saying before that it's like anywhere up to $100.
Exactly. So we lower the price so that a membership, because we know that every year you're not going to experience an emergency. And you should never think twice about having our product, because you should always have it.
Yeah.
And so when you have an emergency, we don't want to ever have to collect or ask you for money, because if you can imagine that you're like choking and we're like, and our pay bill number is 500-134, put your account name as your name, or whatever. Like, we don't have the time to deal with that. And so it's just a super simple product, highly affordable, meaning that most can actually afford it. Today we sell to big, corporates or small corporates. A lot of our clients are schools, factories, taxi companies. Anyone who has the likelihood of experiencing emergency tends to be a good client of ours. But we also sell direct to consumer online, so you can buy it as a family or as an individual to make sure that you're covered. Okay,
so how did you land on 24? 2,400. How did you? Is there a spreadsheet somewhere of like we assume
there's a spreadsheet. Yeah. So it's basically a calculation of risk, meaning how often will you actually need an ambulance?
And how do you get that? How do you get a gauge for that?
Well, so every country is different, and the amazing thing is no one has that data in emerging markets or places where you've never had a 911 system.
Yeah.
So we're starting to build that up. So so our membership prices, may become cheaper or may become more expensive as we get smarter about the actual data. But generally, you need an ambulance more likely in the first 5 years of your life, and then in the last 10 years of your life. So there's a big spread of like little babies and kids, and then once you're, in the last 10 years of your life.
Yeah. Okay. And how many people have signed up? Individuals?
So in total, we have over 30,000 members.
Really? 30,000 members?
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
How have you done that? What have been some of the success? Have there been any, I'll rephrase, have there been any things which were like worked surprisingly well, or things which worked surprisingly unwell, or didn't work surprisingly well? Were there any things you're like, this has got to be a dead cert, and it didn't work, and other things where you're like, oh, we'll give it a go, and it ended up being really good?
I think that one strategy that we had is just said, who are the corporates that potentially have the greatest risk? And actually focused on that, which is opposite of what you think of insurance or insurance-like product, is usually they want the lowest risk people. But what we realized is that that was a captive market. These are, companies that have experienced an emergency before, and maybe it likely has not gone well.
Yeah.
And so if you look at what are the greatest reasons why you would need an ambulance, you would realize that a majority of it is because you're on the road, so car accidents. And so focusing on taxis or mobility companies are a huge, opportunity, or factories or schools, because kids are more prone to injury and accidents and things like that.
And does your coverage apply only when they're during work hours, or is it also when they're back home?
It depends. It depends on how the corporate would like to structure it. We're pretty open to structuring it in whatever the way they like. Ideally, we would like it to be, again, simple, such that no matter where you are, whatever time it is you're covered. So the ideal is that it covers you 24/7.
Yeah, but I imagine also from your perspective, you've got to factor in, if you're kind of looking at it from a factory perspective, and then someone goes home and falls over.
Exactly, yeah. So some of it, and it depends on it, are they casuals, are they full-time employees, all that kind of stuff. So we're very open to customizing and kind of working with the corporate to find what the best plan is for them.
Yeah, sounds great. I should just note that we're currently in the rescue garden, and your dog has come over. So if there is any sort of panting or anything in the background, it's not me. It's the dog. It's the dog.
It's Coco. She's doing an internship.
Is she? Yeah. Is she going to get the job, do you think? What's your sense?
She's got a couple more months left, but we'll see. We'll see.
I'm positive on it, I think. Okay, cool. So you've got rescue, you've got the fires. Okay. What have been some of the things where you've been surprised that the company's taken this direction? Actually, no, I'll rephrase. What have been some things where you're like, I really would have thought we would have been doing this, but actually we ended up not doing it?
Yeah, I think one of the things was that when we talked 3 years ago, we thought very much we were going to be a SaaS product, in the sense that we were going to offer this technology and charge our ambulance companies, and that was going to be kind of our strategy, or that we were going to use kind of like an Uber-like model where we take a commission and things like that. And I think that was a big shift for us, is just realizing that in emergency, the last thing that we need to deal with is money, is that actually creates an ethical quandary, in the sense of, do I help or do I not? And just how important that was for us to make sure that no matter what, we always help. So I think that was a big shift and kind of reason that we went to that process.
How did you land on that conclusion? Was there a series of team meetings? Was it you're doing a company away day, and you're like, oh my God, this is what it needs to be? How did that sort of... So we'd been stewing over it for a while, and one of our ambulance partners was just like, you need to launch this, it's time. Yeah.
We actually launched officially during the Kenyan elections in 2017. So the first elections during August. And then between then and the second election, then we had launched the membership product. So we just realized that there was a huge need for it, and that, we had built this amazing network of ambulances, and it was time that we finally launched.
Get it to the world. Okay.
Yep.
How did people react to it? Did people get it, or did it take a bit of time for people to warm up to what's going on? I'm paying this money, but I might not actually use it. Was there any sort of behaviour changes or things which you had to face?
I think less so. I think that it's hard to sometimes understand, especially even for myself, growing up in a country that has 911, and you never even think twice. But I think that every time we go into a sales meeting or we have a conversation, if you ask anyone, have you ever had an emergency personally or a friend or a relative where you need to get an ambulance? And the answer is always yes. Because it might feel very rare at an individual level, but at a population level, it's not rare at all that someone needs an ambulance. And so I think that just the power of like having that experience and knowing what it feels like to not actually be able to get an ambulance really sits with people. And so it's not a hard product. Most people are like, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
It's not a thing that you have to really, sell. It does not take a lot to sell, to be honest.
Okay.
I think that, interestingly, though, a lot of people have a lot of questions about it because, now that they've started to think about it and they have a lot of experience of what didn't go well when they tried to get an ambulance. So there is some kind of cynicism of like, oh my God, is it going to really work? But I think the incredible thing is like, we've gotten past that. We've done thousands of calls and dispatches and there's tons of proof points and testimonials and stories. And so if you didn't believe it before, you do now.
Yeah. I was once, my friend worked for a company that did surveys, and part of their sales pitch was, cool, I'll just right now go on the platform and ask a question, and then suddenly they could like demo like there and then. I guess you can't really demo your product in a live way. You can't really say, we're going to have it.
We can't do it, but we do a lot of drills. So a lot of times, like for some of the corporates, they want to do a drill because, I mean, like a fire drill, it's always best to plan, or like we work, with the U.S. Embassy to do drills as well. So drills are a good way. But you can't really test in the same sense. But I think a lot of it just comes through having the testimonials and having a number of big corporates that have signed up. And so therefore the kind of confidence that if someone else bought it, then, we must be okay.
What would you say is your like sales cycle, the typical sales cycle for, let's say you've got a pretty big customer, how long would you expect it would take?
It's so different. Our biggest thing right now is that we focus just on like really big corporates that we know will be kind of game changers, and so it's hard to say. It's not.
I suppose each one's different at that level, isn't it? Okay. And does it basically involve you go along for a meeting, you have a series of meetings, figure out the decision makers?
Yep. Exactly. It's pretty straightforward as it relates to that.
What are some of the objections that people have, or think maybe not? You sort of mentioned a bit of cynicism around whether it works. Are there any other parts which people find they need clarification on or they're not clear about?
Less on that. I think that sometimes people get confused about us and insurance. And so they may say, like, as a company, we have taken out a health insurance policy with Jubilee, Resolution, or whomever, and don't they cover ambulances? And so I think that's the only thing that people sometimes scratch their head on. The incredible thing is like, sure, they do technically, but they have no connection to those ambulances. So they're no more able to get an ambulance than you are yourself, which is kind of frightening. So a lot of times what we do is we double insure someone in the sense that we're giving you access to our services that maybe you technically have access to anyway, but the insurance is never going to help you.
Could you partner with insurance companies?
Absolutely. So that's part of the plan.
Very good. Have you had any of those conversations yet?
Of course, yeah.
Are they open to it, or do they see it as? I'm trying to think, why would they not be open to it?
I don't know why they would not be open to it. I think the only thing is that insurers generally don't have such a strong touch on the actual service provision. They're more of a financial instrument, and so I think that getting closer to the actual services maybe is just something they're not used to.
And if would the dream be take out Jubilee insurance? Comes with Flair.
Exactly. The dream is that like everyone literally has access to our service, that it becomes a national number, it's recognized by all, and whether it's embedded into, a product, sold by this company or your car insurance, it doesn't matter, is that you have access to our system. Yeah.
So last time I was here, I think I mentioned at Flair House, everyone was around one table, and now you sort of spread out a bit. So how many people have you got now?
So we have a total of 23.
Okay.
About a third dispatchers, third kind of general ops strategy, and then a third that are software developers.
Got it. Okay. Which is the most difficult section? Which is the most difficult thing in terms of like, this is the bit which is causing me headaches? Not in terms of the actual employees, but in terms of like the way the work is? Or?
I think the hardest part about the team is just the constant evolutions that we make. And it's how do you hire the right people that can grow with the company and at the pace of the company, because you can't always foresee all of the needs that you need, so all of the needs that you will have. And so just having that foresight of someone's like potential and allowing that individual to continue to morph into new roles and positions. And I think that's a big piece of it, because it's not, every company does it differently. Some people like automatically hire a CFO and COO and all these kind of things. For us, it's very much about emergence of those leaders and that talent. And so how do you hire people with that potential and that are open to also constantly changing their responsibilities and roles?
Have you defined the rescue culture? Or have you defined the company culture?
It's a work in process, you know? It's a lot of, I think, you know, initially where you could choose, you know, several adjectives or tenets, but ultimately it's something that evolves over time, and it's more that you know what you don't want to be.
Okay. So what do you not want to be?
What we don't want to be is we want to remain human, is that at the end of the day we're doing incredibly life-saving work, and to always kind of remember that. So yeah, to keep that kind of passion in us. Incredibly collaborative is that, you know, that we realize that what we're doing requires multiple, you know, partners and stakeholders and companies and everything that we do, so that we're never trying to just section ourselves off. Is like, it's always about kind of the power of many.
Okay.
So,
and that's been quite easy to do, or like how do you kind of test for some of those qualities in people when you interview them?
I don't know. So that's what I'm saying, is I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest thing, is like sometimes I think the easier thing to do is to make sure that you check off the boxes of, like, it's easier to check off technical skills, like can they, are they analytical, or can they compose, you know, nice emails and text and stuff like that. Some of those skills it's easier to test for, but I think the culture is like, you gotta almost have a trial and see. And
so do you do that? Do people come in for like a week?
Yeah.
And you just sort of see them? Yeah.
And I think that that's how you actually see, do they fit and gel? Because I think what I'm saying is it's not like a checkbox of like, do they have this, do they have that? And it's also like, we're so complex as individuals. Like, it's really hard to understand all of those things and the dynamics. And a lot of it's also the other people on the team and how do they fit in. And I don't think we've totally figured that out, except that you got to try.
You got to try and just, if there's a fit, there's a fit?
Yep.
Okay. What are the next employees that you're going to be, or the next positions you're going to be hiring for?
So kind of across the board,
Okay.
we need to increase on all fronts, from dispatchers to developers to more people on kind of our ops side, to scale. So we definitely believe in the lean kind of team. But yeah, we need to kind of add in all of those three spaces.
Get a little bit more fat.
A little bit more.
Fat, yeah.
Skim milk.
Skim. And the company, funding-wise, you've obviously stayed afloat and things. Have you? And it sounds like you're making some good revenues if you've got 30,000 paying customers. How's the company sort of looked from the sort of fundraising perspective?
Yeah, so we're still growing much faster than, you know, our revenue, but at the same time, our revenue is growing really quickly as well. But we continue to raise from private investors, VC funds, have gotten some grants and awards along the way. So externally funded to be able to support the kind of rapid growth that we're seeing.
Yeah. What were the grants for? Were they just like, here's some money to keep going, or was it like, oh, we'd like to do this specific project, or we'd like you to do this? Or
all like general funding, not specific.
Okay. That's quite handy. Yeah. And then I remember you mentioning that there is a company in India, or a couple of companies in India that have been doing something similar, and so they've been quite useful. It's been quite a useful, like, barometer. No, barometer's the wrong word. Just like idea of what could be going down the line. How have those Indian companies been doing?
I have no idea.
You're not? Okay.
I've totally lost track.
Right.
To be honest, I think one of the things that we've just done is like focus on what we're doing, and who knows?
Works for you?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I suppose that kind of makes intuitive sense, doesn't it? Like you focus on your own. I can just
I
imagine.
think it was like I was curious in the beginning to
Yeah.
understand because we were all sorting out some of the same decisions.
Mm.
But I have no idea if we reconnected and if they're one still operating or two
Yeah.
what their business looks like. I'm sure that we'll cross paths at some point.
Yeah.
But I really have no idea.
So I was wondering, 'cause I can imagine that might be something which an investor asks is, you're doing this quite innovative business model, like has it worked elsewhere? Or are they not really that concerned?
No, because I think what we're doing is we're building a basic infrastructure that everyone understands is required for growing cities, countries, and that's not innovative in the sense that 911 and 119 and 999 exists in parts of the world that had the resources and could put that system up. So I think that that's never a question. That's the cool thing is we've gotten past that stage is everyone recognizes the invaluable resource of having that 3-digit number to call upon. And regardless of what we're doing of how we did it is we're using cloud-based technology, and we don't need landline phones to build 911 any longer. And so that's what we're doing is innovative is on the tech side. But the actual business in itself is not the innovative part.
Got it. And you say at the moment, currently Kenya, all across Kenya, views to go elsewhere?
Yeah, we're just trying to identify where that elsewhere is. There's tons of opportunity. I mean, 95% of the continent is without 911. So there's no lack.
Where's the 5%?
The 5% is Egypt, and then Botswana, and then parts of South Africa.
Yeah, only parts?
Only parts.
Why is that? Like local government or something?
Some of the local government outside of the cities, it's pretty hard to get access to the provincial ambulances,
Okay.
and there's not a strong central system.
Yeah. Okay.
In the cities, it tends to be privately run.
So, but it will be Africa. It won't be anywhere else in the world.
I think that makes proximity-wise the most sense.
Yeah.
But there is definitely opportunity elsewhere. But I think for right now, we'll stay closer to home.
One of the things that kind of struck me on our last interview was you saying how the system you're building is much better than, well, has the potential to be much better than elsewhere in the world where it is built on a landline system. I was wondering if there's going to become a point where countries like Denmark or the UK or Germany are going to pick up the phone and say, can we just use your system? Even though they already have that 911 provision.
Yeah, I mean, that would be incredible. But yeah, I don't think we're that far off from being at a place, as it relates to our technology, that would be a conversation that we could start.
Yeah. Because is the premise that everyone has a smartphone when they make the call? Is that what is necessary to get the location? Or can you get a lot of the benefits from Flare on a feature phone?
You could. I mean, there's some creative ways to get location information. It depends on how precise you want that location information to be. If you have a smartphone, it's obviously much better. But even for places like Denmark or the UK that have landline-based technology, it's very difficult for them to get any type of geolocation information from your smartphone. So we're already kind of leapt over that because we're able to pull your geolocation.
And so the 30,000 users in Kenya, they're all using it on a smartphone?
No. So we have a hotline. They just call our number. If they don't know where they are, we can then ask for their location.
Yeah. And you can identify them well enough. And very, very cool. Okay. What have been some of the big lessons you've learned, you think, over the last few years? In terms of either things which, on reflection, you're like, oh, we should have figured that out more, or just generally things which you're glad that you know now from the last few years?
I think one of them is to stay lean, and that as a founder is to try to do everything in a little way, in the sense of really understand the business from start to finish, because you can quickly, in the beginning, you're always in the weeds, and then you need to quickly get out of the weeds to be able to pitch to investors, but to always have your hand deep in the business as well, because I think you could easily lose touch with what's actually happening because you're just changing so quickly. And so I think being lean has helped us do that, such that we don't have a ton of layers, we don't have a massive team, is that we hire highly skilled, experienced individuals, and we try to always kind of stay at the high level, but also stay in the detail. I think the second lesson is just that everyone scales in different ways. And I think sometimes the focus is always on one metric and realizing that a business is so multidimensional, and just making sure that you confidently, or we confidently, kind of tell the story that we want to tell, because we ultimately know our business kind of better than anyone. And so making sure that, yeah, that you understand how your business is going to scale, but that it doesn't need to follow the same path as, say, for example, Uber, and that it can follow a very different pathway.
Yeah.
And I think for us, being in healthcare or providing an emergency service, quality is everything. And so just making sure that you scale at the right pace to show your potential, but also don't ever compromise the actual service that you're providing.
Yeah. Do you have like some high-level metrics that you keep an eye on each month or each week?
Yeah, we look at a lot of different things, from number of ambulances on the system, to number of memberships, to number of dispatches, to response time. So it's quite a complicated number of different metrics to really understand, like, how are we performing, but definitely something that we look at regularly to kind of understand, are we scaling too quickly or are we not, to be able to kind of readjust.
Yeah, okay. So just a few more questions. That's all right. You say that a long-term, for startups, the long-term view is 6 months. If you were to extend it a little bit further, 12 months, what do you think Flair could be doing by then?
Yeah, ideally, we're operating in multiple countries.
Okay.
We're offering a more holistic emergency response, so beyond medical. And yeah, I sleep a little bit more.
All good goals, I think.
Yeah.
All good goals. Okay. And at the moment we're here in the Flair house. Are you kind of at capacity here, or would you need to move to a new location?
I think we'll be good for the next 12 months. I think if we operate in another country, we will open, an office there. But for right now, I think we're good.
Yeah.
We're going to try to stay lean as long as we can.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure your investors love to hear that as well.
Yep.
Yeah. What would be like a dream customer for you to get at the moment? If you were to sort of just like take a step back, what would be like? What would the characteristics be to get a dream customer? Or like, what would the dream customer have to have?
I think it always helps to have a customer that has, high visibility or credibility in the market. And whether they're kind of a leader in whatever field, whether it's a premier school or a premier factory, or also any international company tends to be high profile. So I think some of those.
Okay. I imagine what is your... Because is this, from their perspective, is this just a cost which they didn't have previously? Or, I'm trying to work out whose budget this comes from.
Yeah, that's not really the question. I mean, like, people, it is a cost, but it also, on the other end, there was another cost. If you lost an employee's life on the job, someone was paying for that.
Yeah.
Whether it was PR and your image, your reputation, that you were actually paying out an insurance claim for death and disability. So it's not such that we're just adding an additional cost. Oftentimes it's offsetting a huge risk that you actually had.
I say that, like, I've sort of sometimes had experience of, yes, sounds good, but budgets are fixed, and this department, it can't come from this department, and so I'm just wondering, is there like, who do you need to speak? Do you need to be speaking to? Yeah, who do you speak to when you go to a corporate? Who's the sort of decision maker that you're talking to?
It highly varies whether or not it's like the CEO or the HR person or a managing director, or there isn't. I wouldn't say there's a rubric.
Okay.
It's really understanding that company and understanding why they would want the product, and also making sure that we're quite strategic about how and who we sell to.
Okay. And after that, they'll just make it happen.
Yep.
You don't need to worry
Or
about
if they don't, we try to get them to push to a yes or no quickly.
it. Okay. That makes me sound like you've had a few experiences where a no has been dragged out.
Yeah. But I guess that's okay. It's like you kind of learn. I don't think that, to be honest, that's not, our issue is not about selling. That's, which most people don't, I guess, have that luxury. Our issue is, how do we maintain quality and how do we scale in the right way such that we don't overextend ourselves, and we provide that service, the same service that we provide to the first 100 customers, that we provide to our current customer base, that we can provide to the next 100,000, to the next million.
Yeah, fantastic. And people who are listening, they can sign up rescue.co, and that'll just take them through the whole process.
Yeah, it will take no more than 5 minutes,
Okay.
hopefully even less, to sign up. It's integrated directly with M-Pesa or credit card,
Yeah.
and you can sign up. It's 2,400 shillings per annum, and it covers everything. Once you start adding households and family members, it becomes even cheaper.
We say everything, like any ambulance.
Any ambulance.
Yeah, very good. And you could, in theory, not that you would want to, you could take 6 ambulances a year and it would still get covered.
So it technically covers you up to 2 ambulances,
Okay,
but
right,
the chance that you need 2 ambulances in a year is pretty rare.
Pretty low. In the spreadsheet, it's like 0.001.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very
It's
good. Cool.
unlikely.
And so rescue.co. And if they want to learn more about the company, perhaps sort of understand, see if they're a fit with the culture, etc. What's the best way to learn more about you?
You can go to also rescue.co, or you can visit us on Facebook or Twitter or any of our other kind of communication channels.
Fantastic, cool. Well, Caitlin, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Before we head, just a quick moment to say thank you for listening. You can see show notes for this episode by heading to the new website www.theeastafricabusinesspodcast.com. If you'd like to learn more about the show and the work we do, then you can have a bit of an explore on the website and also subscribe to the various places such as Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and email. Finally, if you felt this was a good episode and you've been enjoying the show recently, then please do consider leaving a rating for the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen. You could also tell a friend who's curious about these sorts of businesses that we feature, and indeed, if you know of a business that you'd like to be interviewed on the show, please feel free to reach out via any of the channels mentioned above, and we'll see what we can do to have an interview and showcase them on the show. In any case, have a great week and speak to you soon.